The first snow of December drifted lazily over the sleepy town of Fairview, coating the cracked sidewalks and barren trees in a blanket of fragile white. At the corner of Maple and 8th Street stood a small bookstore, Eliot's Words and Wonders, worn at the edges, like its owner, yet full of life for those willing to look deeper. Eliot Langston, 67, was a quiet man with a gentle heart and a silver beard that looked like it had borrowed color from the snow. He'd run the store for over 30 years, surviving the rise of e-books, chain stores, and a heart-wrenching personal loss that had left a silence in his life deeper than any winter could bring. His wife, Grace, had passed 5 years ago. Since then, the store had become more than a business. It was a refuge, a place where kindness still lived in paper pages and handwritten notes in used books. Every morning, Eliot placed a small sign outside the shop that read, "Today's gift, one book, free for someone who needs hope." It didn't bring in revenue. But it brought in people. And that was what Eliot believed mattered most. One bitter morning, a young woman lingered outside the shop. She wore a threadbare coat and mismatched gloves. Her name was Sasha Rivera, 24, with eyes like stormy glass and a spirit fraying at the seams. Eliot watched her from behind the frost-kissed window as she stared at the free book sign. She wasn't just cold, she was lost. When she finally stepped inside, the bell above the door chimed, and warm air, smelling of cinnamon and old stories, wrapped around her like a hug. "Looking for something specific?" Eliot asked kindly, eyes twinkling. She hesitated. "I saw the sign, about hope." Without another word, Eliot turned, walked to a shelf, and pulled out a worn copy of The Alchemist. He handed it to her, smile unwavering. "Hope travels well in this one." Sasha clutched the book like it was the only solid thing in her life. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know how much I needed this." He didn't ask. He never did. But her gratitude settled deep in his bones. That evening, Sasha read the book cover to cover in the corner of a cold laundromat, tears running down her cheeks. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. She'd left a toxic home, quit her job to escape harassment, and was surviving on fragments of courage. But that book, and the man who gave it to her, reminded her that life still held magic if you believed in the kindness of strangers. She returned to the bookstore the next day, not for another free book, but to ask for work. Eliot didn't need help. But he saw something familiar in her, the way Grace used to help anyone who walked into their lives with empty hands and heavy hearts. "I can't pay much," Eliot said, "but I can offer warmth, books, and dignity." It was enough. Over the next few months, Sasha transformed. She organized shelves, ran a small poetry corner for teens on weekends, and started a kindness wall where anyone could pin notes of gratitude, needs, or offers of help. The bookstore became more than a place, it became a pulse in the town's heart. And Eliot, who had spent 5 years speaking mostly to paperbacks, found himself smiling again. She reminded him of Grace, bright, stubborn, and full of fight, even when broken. One afternoon, a man entered the shop. Well-dressed. Confident. A little too confident. It was Sasha's father. "You think working in a dusty store makes you strong," he said, scoffing. "Come home. You've made your point." Eliot stepped in quietly. "She's not making a point. She's building a life." Her father laughed. "She doesn't need charity from old men playing hero." Sasha looked her father in the eye, her voice steady for the first time in years. "I don't need saving. I needed kindness. And I found it." He left, anger in his eyes. But Sasha stood taller that day. Spring came early that year. The shop bloomed with life, students, elderly neighbors, lonely hearts, and curious souls. Sasha had started a new initiative, Pass It Forward. Every book sold contributed one free book to someone in need. Then, one morning, Eliot didn't show up. Sasha found him in the back office, struggling to breathe. The doctors said it was heart failure. Years of neglect, both emotional and physical, had caught up. He was admitted for surgery. "I'm not afraid," Elliot said weakly. "I've lived a full life. But the store, it still has work to do." Sasha held his hand. "You gave me a second chance. Let me give it back to the world." During his recovery, Sasha ran the store like a captain steering a ship through stormy seas. She crowdfunded support, reached out to schools, and got media attention for the Kind Bookstore. Donations poured in. Even the mayor visited. Elliot watched it all unfold from a hospital bed, his heart swelling with pride, not pain. When he returned months later, cane in hand, he found the storefront freshly painted, a mural on the wall, Grace and Elliot, holding books, surrounded by children and light. One summer day, a teenage boy named Miles came in. He looked hardened, tired, angry at the world. He tried to steal a book. Instead of calling the police, Sasha offered him tea and a story. She asked him to read aloud. His voice cracked. She saw through the bravado, he was scared, smart, and starving for affection. She offered him a job sorting books on weekends. Slowly, Miles softened. He pinned a note on the kindness wall months later. "Someone saw me." That changed everything. Years passed. Sasha officially took over the store. Elliot moved to a smaller place but visited every Friday to teach a Stories of Kindness class. The bookstore became a landmark, the heart of Fairview. One snowy evening, a woman entered with a baby in her arms. She looked tired but hopeful. She held a copy of The Alchemist. "I don't know if you remember," she said to Sasha. "But years ago. I was hungry, scared, and alone. A man gave me this book. Told me hope traveled well." Sasha smiled, eyes misty. "I remember." The woman handed her a donation envelope. "I'm stable now. I want to give back." Inside was a check for $50,000. That night, Sasha sat with Elliot in his favorite chair in the shop, firelight flickering. "I used to think Grace was the best thing I ever gave this town," Elliot whispered. Sasha smiled, placing a hand over his. "Maybe she was the beginning. But kindness, it never ends. You just passed the torch." Epilogue. 10 years later, Sasha published a book titled Kind Chronicles, a collection of stories from the store, from strangers turned family, from wounds that healed through warmth. It became a bestseller. On the dedication page, it read, "For Elliot and Grace, who showed the world that one kind act can write 1,000 stories. And for everyone still writing theirs.